connecting at all. Because here's what we even do, especially this time of the year when we're tired, right? We're walking around, we're standing at our doors, kids are walking in, we're like, good morning, Ben, it's good to see you. Good morning, Jerry, it's good to see you. Hey, how are you? Thank you for bringing in your stuff, I really appreciate it. Good morning. Hi. Good morning. Right? Like immediately we're like, oh, my amygdala's already low. We're already in fight or flight. We just want to minimize the amount of connection we have anyway. Now, a couple of things are going to occur. If Jared is not a big behavior problem, he'll just fold in and just do his own thing and isolate himself. But if he is starved for connection, what is he very likely to do? He's going to amp up his game, because at least if I'm yelling at him, we are connected. So my guess is you've got some secondary kids that come in guns blazing purely because that's the only way that they know how to get an adult to connect with them throughout the day. And so ideally what you start to do is you start to figure out, first of all, what is a way that I can bid towards this kid that's firing my amygdala, but then also, how do I turn away from inappropriate bids, because I do want to starve those, but then how do I turn towards appropriate bids when they occur? Because sometimes our amygdala is so flayed open by this particular kid that we just turn away from every bid that the kid is offering. Because we don't, and sometimes we don't even see the appropriate bids. The fact that the kid showed up, that's the first appropriate bid most of these kids did. They showed up. Because, right, your toughest kid, they're never absent, right? I mean, those are not the kids that are gone. They're there every day. That's their first bid. So how do we respond to that? Cutting in and out. Is this a little better? People will interpret this as, oh God, another part of the training where she's telling me I just have to be more positive with the kid. And if that's all you hear, then what happens is you go back to your amygdala kid and you start doing things like this. Jared, good job breathing. Way to wear pants. You start giving what I call, and I want to watch what I call it because we got a really short teacher in here. We give what I start calling cruddy feedback. It's not useful. And we're doing it in an attempt to be polite, but that's not what this is measuring. And I don't want you to start giving kids lots and lots of positive feedback all the time, because especially with secondary kids, sometimes secondary kids don't need positive feedback. For instance, I want you to imagine right quick, Shanna, let's say I was behind you pulling into the parking lot, and I went, Shanna, I was behind you in the parking lot. You did a great job pulling into your parking spot. I mean, you were hand over hand. You didn't even have to repark. You just slid right in there. Great job. Now that's very specific positive feedback. But if I walked up and gave her that, even as ongoing regard, what would she think of me when I walked off? Looney Tunes, what was the point of that? And sometimes that's what we do. Jared, you know what? You did a great job walking upright into my class today. Like you were swinging your arms and you went right to your desk and way to go. And he would be like, what is happening? Because really there are only 3 times that you need to give specific positive feedback. When a behavior is new, and most of your secondary folks, a lot of the behaviors aren't new. I mean, you think about 6th grade students, freshman students, there are probably some additional new things just getting used to a building than other people on your campus, but there's not a ton of new stuff, okay? And then anything that's challenging, that would be appropriate. So in that case, if you did have problems walking to your desk, that might be appropriate. The 3rd time it's important to give positive feedback is anytime it's something that a kid is proud of. So, like for instance, Jared, let's say bringing your materials to class is challenging for you. So you walk in with your materials. In that case, it might be appropriate for me to give you positive feedback. Jared, thank you for bringing your materials in. I really appreciate it, okay? Now, who is in front of you right now? Your name is? Jamie. And Jamie's behind him and she goes, I brought in my materials. I don't want to go, Jamie, this isn't about you right now. This is about Jared. She's proud that she has her materials. I'm going to say, you know what, way to go. I really appreciate it. Like I know, I mean, I've been on the road this week. I think I go home Saturday night, I go fly out Sunday to Houston for the week. I know I'm gonna get home next Friday and my husband's gonna be like, honey, I cleaned the kitchen. And in my mind, I'm like, why the heck wouldn't you have cleaned the kitchen? I haven't even been home. What, none of this is my mess. But if I say any of that, what are the chances that that kitchen will be clean the next time I come back? Zero. He's proud of it. So in that case, it's appropriate to give positive feedback. So sometimes you gotta dig deep. Like, you know what, honey, thank you for cleaning the kitchen. It's one less thing I have to do when I get home. I really appreciate it. That makes sense, okay? So new, challenging, something they're proud of. That's when it is appropriate to give feedback. And this, to me, is also the most important strategy that we take today because it is your highest leverage strategy, meaning it takes the least amount of planning for the biggest payoff, but it is the most misunderstood task in all of classroom management, also the most misinterpreted when we take data, and the fact that we have to consider what we're actually paying attention to. So if all that sounded like gobbledygook, let's clarify it just a little bit. But this is not measuring feedback. Interactions and feedback are two different data points. And that's why this is such a struggle. Because what we are really measuring is the types of behavior that you are rewarding. And here's the reward that we are looking at, attention. And that goes back to where it can be potentially harmful and actually lead to additional problems. The currency that you have the most of in your class, the reward that you have the most to give, the currency, the money that you have is time and attention. You have almost an unlimited supply of attention, okay? Now I know you could argue that that is a finite supply and I understand that, but you have the most of that than anything else that you can offer. So when you use that currency, when you pay attention, you are either paying attention to a kid when they're doing something right, or you are paying attention to a kid when they're doing something wrong. And the trick is, you want to pay more of your currency to which group? Right. The kids who are doing it right. That's where you want to pay the most currency. Class, it is time for independent seat work. I need your voice level of 0, eyes on your own paper for the first 5 minutes because we are working on perseverance. You may begin. Hey Lacey, I wanted to let you know you did a great job with your group yesterday. They all came in this morning and they got 100% on the quiz. Way to go. Positive, corrective, not sure. And this is where everything falls apart. Because you were listening to what I said. What were they doing? Talking. What were they supposed to be doing? Working. Therefore, the interaction is corrective. In that moment, any attention I pay them counts in the corrective column. Now, we used to just call it positive and negative. And I actually think that's easier, but so many people thought negative meant bad. It's not, it's a mathematical term. It's positive when you're paying attention to something you want to increase. It's negative when you're paying attention to something you want to decrease. It's a mathematical term. So it doesn't mean good and bad. It doesn't mean effective and ineffective. It means I want to see more of this. I want to see less of this. In that moment, any interaction I have with them counts as corrective or negative. I could have come up to them and done this. Hey ladies, I love bananas. Positive or corrective? Corrective. Corrective. I could have come up and stared at them. Positive or corrective? Corrective. Corrective. Any interaction I have with them in that moment. Now, what this means is, if I want to increase the amount that I pay out to kids who are getting it right, in this situation, I want to look at all the kids who are getting it right first and pay them first. And it doesn't have to include feedback. I think this has been the big pushback, especially with secondaries. You're like, oh, now I gotta just start making things up. Like, oh, you wore a shirt, great sweater, I like your hair. Like, we're just making stuff up. No, it's just attention. So I could literally just come up to a kid's desk and do that. I could be looking at their work. If you notice that I am paying you attention, that counts as a positive interaction. I can give you a thumbs up. I can give you a pat on the shoulder. I can say, hey, thanks for bringing in your stuff today, Jamie. I really appreciate it. It can include positive feedback, but it doesn't have to. But an interaction is positive or corrective based on what the kid is doing at the moment you interact. Because unfortunately, this is the message that we send kids' brains as they're developing. Show up every day, do exactly what you're supposed to be doing, behave appropriately, we're gonna ignore you. But you screw up and I'll be there for you about every 30 seconds. Especially kids who are starved for connection, who are starved for attention, then that's what they're gonna do. Because they know they get our best, most currency when they screw around. Because the good thing about paying attention, if I've got 2 kids screwing around, and I start paying attention to the kids who are getting it right, a meta-analysis of the research out there shows you have a 9 out of 10 shot of redirecting their behavior regardless of the age of the kids. Now that shocked me because I was like, why do I not believe this? As a secondary person, I was like, I don't know if that's true. So I started looking at the ways we pay attention. So often we do this. These 2 are screwing around and we'll do this. Well, I like the way this group is working. That is not what I just demonstrated. At best, I would give you a positive and a corrective at best, but it's really just a corrective you've drugged these people into to prove your point. It has to be honest and sincere, but it goes back to your brain. Remember, your brain is trained to scan for threats. The first thing you see as a teacher aren't the kids who are getting it right. The first thing you see are the things that are going to fire your amygdala. That's what keeps us alive. So you do have to retrain your brain. The best way to do this is to set up a video camera for 20 minutes. Get past the fact that you wore those pants. Get past the fact that that's what you sound like, and watch yourself and take data. You're not listening to what you say. You're watching what the kids are doing at the moment that you interact. That's why this is such an interesting and complex strategy to apply. But it is your highest leverage. This right here, it will do more to change the climate and culture of your school, especially combined with ongoing regard, especially combined with paying attention to that emotional connection in those kids. But we need to make sure that we're clear on it. So what I'd like for you to do is turn to your partner and I want you to talk about the following. First, make sure you're clear on the difference between feedback and interactions. And then think about, in your classroom, how would you increase your positive interactions with kids? And then what might you do if you've got a kid where you pay attention when they get it right and they tell you off? Like what happens if you've got a kid that actually responds negatively to a positive interaction, if you have time for that third question? Questions, comments about positive interactions? Because that is a little bit different than positive feedback. And this is why you have to come back to this again and again and again. Like the Achieve teams, they have heard this again and again and again. Part of the reason is the same reason why we repeat things in our content classes. Because when you sit in a professional development, and we'll see if this is moved into your permanent drive, all my Achieve team members, what percentage of my words did you even hear today? Does anybody remember? What percentage of my words do you even hear during a professional development? 50%. You will hear half of what I say. Now I love this, because when I screw up, I'm like, probably in the half nobody was listening to. But within a week, your retention drops to 25 of that 50%. Which means for every 6 hours you spend in PD, you only remember 1 or 2 things. That's why you have to repeat them. So this is a great conversation to have. If there's one thing that I would have your staff do, it would be to intentionally create a schedule where you are making sure that you self-analyze for this ratio of positive interactions. Because again, it does more to change the climate culture of the school than anything else that you've got.